I never thought I'd say this out loud. My parents left my 8-year-old daughter at a shelter as punishment, not for something she did, not because they were in danger or sick, but because I refused to give my younger brother $30,000 for yet another one of his startup fantasies. That day changed everything. It was a Friday, just like any other. I was wrapping up a deadline for a freelance design client when I glanced at the clock. 2:47 p.m. Ellie's school let out at 3 o'clock. I saved my work, grabbed my keys, and headed to the elementary school we'd driven to together hundreds of times before. Only this time, she wasn't there. I remember standing by the school gate, smiling at the teachers, scanning the kids flooding out in waves. Backpack after backpack, little arms flailing, lunchboxes swinging. But not Ellie, not her bright purple jacket, not her honey brown curls. After 15 minutes, my smile was gone. After 20, I felt the first grip of cold fear twist in my gut. The playground emptied. The crossing guard waved goodbye. Still, no Ellie. Mrs. Mitchell? I turned sharply. It was her teacher, Ms. Daniels, with a confused look. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Ellie was picked up early today. My stomach dropped. What? By who? I asked, voice tight. Your parents, she said, eyebrows furrowing. They're on your emergency contact list, right? They said there was a family emergency and showed the authorization form you signed at the start of the year. I stood frozen, my heart slamming against my ribs. I hadn't spoken to my parents in over a week, not since our last explosive argument about Zach and the money. Why would they pick up Ellie? Without telling me? I tried to stay calm as I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. Dad? Same. I called their house phone. Nothing. I tried Zach, even though I hated myself for doing it. No answer. By 6 p.m., panic took over. I had called everyone I could think of. Friends, neighbors, even Ellie's piano teacher. No one had seen her. No one knew anything. Just when I was dialing 911, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello? I answered, barely able to breathe. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Father Anthony from Grace Haven Shelter. I believe we have your daughter here. In that moment, I didn't know whether to collapse or scream. My parents had abandoned my child at a shelter, and this was just the beginning. As I sped toward Grace Haven Shelter that night, every mile blurred into the next. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight they ached. I kept replaying the same question over and over. How did we get here? How did the people who raised me become the kind of people who'd leave a child, my child, with strangers to prove a point? The truth? This didn't come out of nowhere. Looking back now, the cracks were always there. They just deepened over time until the foundation of our family collapsed. I grew up in a nice home on a tree-lined street in Southeast Portland. 2 parents, 1 brother. Neighbors who smiled and waved. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family that sent Christmas cards with matching sweaters. But from the inside, it was always 2 against 1. My parents, Richard and Valerie Mitchell, adored my younger brother Zachary. From the moment he was born, it was like I faded into the background. Zach scraped his knee. The world stopped. Zach got a C- in math? He's doing his best. Let's reward the effort. I brought home straight A's? That's what we expect from you, Lauren. Every achievement of mine was expected. Every mistake from him was understandable. I was the dependable daughter, the helper, the babysitter, the one who didn't need extra encouragement. But that encouragement, it came in the form of time, money, forgiveness, and blind faith. And all of it went to Zach. I learned early on that if I wanted anything, new clothes, a phone, even a ride to practice, I had to earn it, or do it myself. By age 15, I was working weekends at a local print shop and saving every cent. Meanwhile, Zach was blowing through allowances and wrecking bikes, only to be handed better ones. Boys will be boys, my mom would say with a fond smile. I remember once in high school, I got accepted into a summer design program in New York. A huge opportunity, competitive, fully funded, except for the plane ticket. When I asked my parents if they could help with the airfare, my dad looked at me like I was asking for a car. We've got a family to run, Lauren. Maybe try a local program next year. That same summer, Zach got a $2,000 dirt bike just because. I didn't even cry. I was too used to it by then. Instead, I found a temp job filing receipts at a dentist's office. I earned the money, booked the flight, and went to New York on my own. That's the pattern that shaped my life. Me, earning. Zach asking, my parents giving. When I got accepted to college on a full scholarship for graphic design, my parents barely acknowledged it. It's nice, my mom said, but are you sure that's a stable field? Zach's thinking of starting a business. Zach thought about a lot of things. None of them lasted. He dropped out of 2 community colleges, quit every job within months, and burned through whatever savings he got. And yet he was always the one they worried about, the one they coddled, the one who needed just one more chance. Me? I stopped asking. I built a business, married a man who believed in me, and when I lost him, I didn't run to my parents for help. I picked up the pieces for Ellie. So maybe I shouldn't have been surprised when they turned on me the moment I said no to Zach's latest big idea. But abandoning Ellie? That was a line I never thought they'd cross. And still, part of me wondered, how long had they seen me as the problem? The shelter sat at the edge of the city, nestled between a used bookstore and a closed-down laundromat. It didn't look like the kind of place where a child should end up, not even for an hour. As I pulled into the gravel lot, my headlights caught a glimpse of the small faded sign, Grace Haven, Temporary Shelter and Outreach Center. I parked crooked, half in a handicapped spot, half on the curb. My legs barely worked as I forced myself toward the entrance. The door creaked open, and there she was, Ellie, curled up on a faded couch in the lobby, knees hugged to her chest, clutching a backpack that was way too light. She looked up as I burst in, and the moment her eyes met mine, she jumped up and ran. "Mommy!" I dropped to my knees and caught her, holding her so tight I could barely breathe. Her little body trembled in my arms, and her voice cracked as she whispered, "Are you mad at me?" I pulled back, my heart lurching. "What? No, sweetheart. Why would you think that?" She hesitated, chewing her lip. "Grandma said you didn't want me anymore. She said you picked money over family, and I had to stay here until you learned your lesson." Time stopped. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, feel the roar of my pulse. The room tilted. But I didn't cry. Not yet. I brushed the hair from Ellie's face and cupped her cheeks. "Listen to me, Ellie Rose. I will never stop wanting you. Never. Do you understand? What they said? It was wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. This is not your fault." Her face crumpled, and she buried it in my neck. That's when I noticed the small backpack she'd brought, the one my mom must have packed. I opened it with shaking hands. One change of clothes, a bottle of water, a granola bar, a worn-out storybook Ellie barely liked anymore, and a handwritten note folded twice. I unfolded it and read, "Lauren, maybe this will help you see what really matters. Love, Mom and Dad." My fingers tore the paper before I even realized what I was doing. A staff member, a man in a gray sweater with a gentle voice, approached. "I'm Father Anthony," he said, offering a hand I couldn't take. "Ellie told us your name, and we were able to reach you from her emergency contact info. She was scared but very brave." I swallowed hard. "Thank you for not calling CPS." He gave a sad smile. "We considered it, but something in her eyes told me this wasn't neglect. It was manipulation." I nodded once. "You're not wrong." We sat down for a while as he gave me a brief report of what had happened. My parents dropped Ellie off around 3:30, said they were helping their daughter through a breakdown, and needed someone to watch their granddaughter temporarily. They signed some intake forms and left without leaving a callback number. Left her, like she was luggage. Back home, Ellie barely let go of my arm. She slept in my bed that night, curled so tight against me it hurt. She woke up crying 3 times, each time asking if someone was going to take her away again. Each time I held her and promised, "No one is taking you anywhere, ever again." But the nightmares didn't stop. Neither did the calls from family, not to offer help, but to accuse me. Somehow my parents had already spun a story. that I'd had a mental breakdown, that they were stepping in for Ellie's safety. Texts poured in from cousins, aunts, even old family friends. Just give Zach the money. Stop being difficult. You need help. Help? What I needed was for someone to see what was actually happening. They didn't just pick Zach over me anymore. They used my daughter as a weapon. And now I was done playing nice. By morning, I had gone from shock to fire. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay beside Ellie, watching her small chest rise and fall, wondering how many more nights she'd wake up crying because of people who were supposed to love her. And something in me snapped. This wasn't just a bad decision. It was abuse, and I wasn't going to let it happen again. The first call I made was to Alicia. She answered on the first ring. I heard, Lauren, I'm already on my way. She didn't ask what I needed. She just showed up with groceries, Ellie's favorite fruit snacks, and a calm voice that soothed us both. While she helped Ellie paint with watercolors at the kitchen table, I sat in my office and started researching lawyers. I found one, Patricia Yoon, a family law attorney who specialized in child endangerment and custody disputes. Her reviews were stellar. Her office answered on the second ring. This is Patricia's assistant, a woman said. Do you need immediate help? Yes, I replied, sea-eyed. My parents took my child from school without my permission. They left her at a shelter to punish me. I need legal protection and fast. There was a pause, then, we'll see you at 3 p.m. today. Patricia was calm, confident, and, more importantly, she believed me. After I told her everything, from the money Zach asked for to the fight with my parents, to Ellie's abandonment, she leaned back and nodded. First thing, she said, we're filing for a protective order. That means they can't come near you or Ellie. Second, I'll help you report this formally. Police and child services will need to be involved, and I'll guide you through every step. I expected to feel terrified. Instead, I felt powerful. For the first time in days, someone was on my side. After the meeting, I took Ellie to her first session with Dr. Margot Lewis, a child psychologist recommended by the shelter. She had soft eyes and toys in every corner of her office. Ellie was quiet at first, hiding behind me, but eventually opened up after seeing a dollhouse. She needs to feel safe again, Dr. Lewis told me. Children who experience this kind of betrayal often internalize it. Our goal is to help her understand that she wasn't the problem. I nodded, fighting back tears. Please, just help her sleep through the night. We'll get there, she promised. While Ellie was in therapy, I called the police department and asked for Officer Ramirez, the officer who had taken my initial statement at the shelter. She remembered me right away. We've opened an investigation, she said. There's enough for us to pursue potential charges for child endangerment and unlawful custody interference, but it'll take time. I'll cooperate in every way, I told her. She paused. Lauren, are you prepared for what happens when your family finds out? This could get ugly. I stared out the window of the therapy office. They already made it ugly, I said. I'm just making it right. Back home, the messages from my family had only gotten worse. Aunt Dana, you're tearing this family apart. Uncle Greg, so dramatic, just help your brother and move on. Even my older cousin Michelle, who I used to trust, texted, Ellie will forgive you one day for dragging this into court. Forgive me? They had no idea what she had said that night. No idea what it's like to watch your child look you in the eye and ask, did I do something wrong, Mommy? And now, they never would. Because I wasn't fighting for their approval anymore. I was fighting for Ellie, for me, for the kind of peace no one in this family had ever known. 2 days after I filed the protective order, an email appeared in my inbox with no subject line and a sender address I didn't recognize. Your brother, new at protonmail.com. My stomach clenched. At first, I thought it was just another cruel message from some distant cousin or a fake account meant to shame me. But when I opened it, I found a single sentence. He wasn't tricked. He was part of it. Below that was an attachment titled Secure Chain Internal.zip. I stared at it, hesitating. My hand hovered over the mouse. Was this some elaborate scam? A virus? Another emotional ambush? But curiosity, or maybe instinct, won. I downloaded the file, extracted the documents, and what I saw nearly made me throw up. The folder contained over a dozen PDFs and screenshots, emails, chat logs, pitch decks, even spreadsheets with names, dates, and commissions. In one email, Zach wrote directly to someone named Derek.K, ops lead, saying, "Already got 2 lined up, parents are easy, good for 150K, working on my sister too, but she's more skeptical." Another email from the same thread. "Once I reach 250K brought in, I move to tier 2 and get a back-end cut, right?" There was no doubt. Zach wasn't an investor. He was a recruiter. I forwarded the entire folder to Patricia and called her immediately. She didn't hesitate. "We're taking this to the FBI." Within 24 hours, I was sitting across from Agent Renner, a man in a dark blue suit who introduced himself calmly, but whose sharp eyes missed nothing. "We've been building a case against the secure chain operation for months," he said. "We've just confirmed Zach Mitchell's involvement as a mid-level recruiter." I blinked. "You already knew about him?" He nodded. "We suspected. This confirms it. Thank you for sharing it." "So, he knew it was a scam?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Agent Renner didn't soften the blow. "Yes, and he profited from it. That $30,000 he asked you for? It wasn't for investment. It was to qualify for a higher commission tier." The next day, Patricia called with another update. "My investigator found that your parents' house is under foreclosure," she said. I froze. "They took out a second mortgage 2 months ago. The money's gone. Missed the last 2 payments. The bank filed notice last week." I sat in stunned silence. "They gave Zach everything," I whispered. "Everything, even after everything he's done." "They don't know what he's done yet," Patricia said gently. "But they would, because I was done protecting people who had used and discarded me like I was disposable." That evening, my doorbell rang. I opened it and came face to face with my father. He looked small, not in stature, but in spirit. His usual ironclad presence had been replaced with sagging shoulders, unshaven cheeks, and eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Lauren," he said, "may I come in?" Against every fiber of my better judgment, I let him in. He sat on the far edge of the living room, eyeing the house I'd built, the silence between us stretching like a canyon. Finally, he spoke. "We're losing the house," he said. "I know. Your mother is staying with your cousin for now. I came to ask if maybe, just until we figure things out." I cut him off. "You want a place to stay? After what you did to Ellie?" He winced, but didn't deny it. "We were desperate." Zach said. "That it was a sure thing?" I snapped. "That if you just gave a little more, it would all work out?" He didn't answer. I continued, voice trembling now. "You lied to my daughter. You told her I didn't want her. You dropped her off like a stray animal." She didn't understand the context. "There is no context," I hissed. "She has nightmares now. She clings to me because she's terrified you'll take her again. And now you want my help?" "We're still your parents," he said, his voice stiffening. "We did what we thought was right." "No," I said, rising to my feet. "You did what was convenient, what served your golden child. Again." I pointed to the door. "I will not let you use me. Or Ellie, not anymore." He left without another word. But before I could sit back down, Ellie came down the stairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Was that Grandpa?" I nodded slowly. "What did he want?" "To stay here," I said honestly. "Are they still mad at you?" I knelt and held her close. "Maybe, but it doesn't matter anymore. We don't have to let angry people stay in our lives." She nodded, small and solemn. "Good," she said quietly, "because they scare me now. I didn't want to see them again. Not my parents, not Zach, not after everything. But closure doesn't come from silence. It comes from confrontation. So, with Patricia's help, I arranged a meeting. Not at my home, not anywhere near Ellie, but in a neutral space. Patricia's law office. We booked the conference room and stationed 2 of her paralegals nearby just in case things got ugly. I still don't owe them anything, I told Patricia before the meeting, but I need to say it, out loud, to their faces. You're doing this on your terms, she affirmed. That matters. My parents arrived first. They looked older, more worn down than I'd ever seen them. My mother's hair wasn't styled. My father's suit was wrinkled and his jaw tight with a bitterness he no longer tried to mask. Then Zach walked in, late as usual. He wore sunglasses on a cloudy day and a leather jacket that screamed borrowed confidence. He flopped into the chair farthest from me, arms crossed. "What is this?" he asked, like he was doing me a favor by showing up. I opened my laptop. "This, I said coldly, is the truth." I turned the screen toward them and clicked open the emails. Zach's messages to the scam coordinators. The line about mom and dad being good for 150K. The one where he mentioned working on me, as if I were just another target to exploit. My mother gasped audibly. My father leaned forward, squinting at the screen, disbelief cracking across his face. "What is this?" he whispered. Proof," I replied, that Zach wasn't a victim. He was a recruiter. He knew what Secure Chain was, and he used both of you, lied to you, to get higher commissions. Zach's bravado flickered. "They're out of context," he muttered. "They're damning," Patricia interjected firmly, "and they've already been verified by the FBI." My father's face turned pale. My mother sat in stunned silence. "The FBI?" she repeated, her voice barely audible. "Yes," I confirmed. "They're investigating everyone involved in Secure Chain, including Zach." Zach's posture stiffened, but he didn't deny it. "They're trying to scapegoat me," he said, suddenly defensive. "Everyone believed in the project until it collapsed." "You never believed," I said. "You were desperate, addicted. You gambled with our lives, and you're still lying." I took a deep breath and slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents Patricia helped me prepare. A statement of boundaries, a request for family therapy before any future contact with Ellie, and a formal request for an apology, in writing, to my daughter. My father scoffed. "You expect us to beg?" "I expect you to take responsibility," I said evenly. "For what you did to Ellie, for lying to her, abandoning her, damaging her trust." "We did what we thought was best," my mother snapped suddenly, tears brimming in her eyes. "You were shutting us out." "You weaponized a child," I replied. "You don't get to justify that," Patricia chimed in. "Lauren is offering a path forward, conditional, yes, but a path nonetheless. I'd suggest you consider it before any legal consequences escalate further." My parents exchanged looks. Then, like clockwork, they both looked at Zach, not at me, not at the documents, at him. "Zach," my father said, voice low. "Is this true?" Zach didn't answer. He just looked down. For once, there was no slick defense, no clever spin. My mother's hand trembled. "You said it was real. You said we'd get it all back." Silence. And then I spoke. The final thing I needed to say. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for Ellie. You don't get to be in her life unless you're willing to earn that right again. And it starts with honesty, with accountability, not guilt, not control, real love, unconditional." I stood up slowly. "This isn't a negotiation," I added. "It's a line in the sand." They didn't sign anything that day, but they also didn't follow me out the door. That silence, for once, wasn't rejection. It was realization. And maybe the first step toward something new. Or maybe not. Either way, I was finally free to walk away. 3 days after the confrontation at Patricia's office, the knock came. Firm, rhythmic, unavoidable. I opened the front door to find Agent Renner standing there, flanked by 2 additional agents. He gave a polite nod, but there was no mistaking the purpose of his visit. "Lauren Mitchell?" he asked, though he already knew. "Yes," I said, glancing behind him. "Is Zachary Mitchell here?" "No, he hasn't contacted me since the meeting." Renner nodded. "He's been evading our calls. But after reviewing the files you gave us and cross-referencing them with known recruiter logs, we have a warrant for questioning. Do you know where he might be? I shook my head. Check my cousin's house. He always runs to the people who still believe he's the victim. They thanked me and left. I didn't watch them go. I turned around, shut the door, and leaned against it, breathing deep. This was far from over. That evening, Ellie had a nightmare again. She cried out and clutched at the air, tears streaming before she even opened her eyes. When I pulled her into my arms, she whispered, "I dreamed Grandpa came and said I had to go back." "You don't have to go anywhere, baby," I said, brushing damp curls off her forehead. "No one can take you from me ever again." She nodded, but didn't smile. Dr. Lewis warned me about this. "It will take time," she said during our weekly session. "Betrayal from caregivers runs deep, but Ellie is still young, still resilient, and she's safe now. That's what matters." 2 days later, Patricia called. "Zach has been detained. The FBI located him at a short-term rental under a fake name." I felt nothing. No relief, no joy, just numbness. Did he cooperate? Eventually. Enough to avoid jail time, for now. He'll be on 5 years probation, mandatory addiction treatment, and must complete 1,000 hours of community service. His accounts have been frozen. He lost everything. I closed my eyes. And my parents? They're still in denial, but it's crumbling. They haven't paid their rent at the new apartment. Their credit is wrecked. Reality is catching up. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. The community rallied. It started with Ellie's school. Ms. Daniels, her teacher, organized a meal train for us. We started receiving warm dinners every other night, made by people I'd barely spoken to, parents from Ellie's class, neighbors from 3 blocks over. Then the PTA sent gift cards. The local coffee shop, where I used to freelance in the corner, reached out with free drinks and workspace offers. Even one of my former clients emailed, "Take the time you need. Your priorities are right where they should be." It was quiet, consistent kindness. No pity, just support. The kind that reminded me, not all families destroy. Some build. One afternoon, Ellie was playing in the yard when Alicia stopped by with her husband, James. They brought over a new bookshelf for Ellie's room and helped me carry groceries inside. Over dinner, James looked up and said, well, we've been thinking. If you ever need us to step in for Ellie, legally, I mean, we'd be honored." I froze. They'd been there every step of the way. During the worst days, through the therapy sessions, and now through the healing. They weren't blood, but they never left. That night, I asked Ellie a question I'd been turning over in my mind for weeks. "Sweetie, would you want Auntie Alicia and Uncle James to be your godparents? The kind that can take care of you if something ever happens to me?" Her eyes lit up. "Really?" "Really," she nodded. "They always bring the good ice cream. And they never lie." Simple words. But they meant everything. Later, as I tucked her in, she whispered, "Mom." "Yeah, baby?" "We don't have to forgive people who hurt us, right?" I hesitated. "Not if they haven't tried to make it right." She nodded. "Okay, I still miss Grandma sometimes, but I don't want to see her. Is that bad?" "No," I said softly. "That's called knowing your boundaries. It's brave." The envelope was plain. No return address, just my name, handwritten in letters I hadn't seen since high school. I almost tossed it, but something told me to open it. Maybe closure, maybe curiosity, maybe a dangerous mix of both. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The writing was uneven. Not rushed, not practiced. Just raw. "Lauren, I'm writing this from the treatment center. Step 8 is, make a list of all the people you've harmed. Step 9 is, make amends to them where possible. I don't expect this to fix anything. I know it won't. But I need you to know I see it now. I see how I've manipulated Mom and Dad for years. How I made you the villain to keep myself from feeling like one. How I used your strength as an excuse to stay weak. I told myself you didn't need support, that you had it all figured out. But really, I just didn't want to admit you were everything I wasn't. Secure Chain wasn't just a bad idea. It was a last-ditch attempt to outrun everything I'd ruined. And I used you. I tried to make you feel guilty for protecting your child. I lied to mom and dad to get money they didn't have. And the worst part? I told myself it was justified. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll believe that I'm trying to change. Zach. I read it twice, then a third time. The words didn't make me cry. They didn't make me angry either. What they did was confuse me, because I didn't know what forgiveness meant anymore. Later that night, after Ellie was asleep, I sat on the porch with Alicia. We were sharing a pot of chamomile tea and the quiet that often settled between women who had seen too much together. I handed her the letter. She read it silently, then set it down on the table. "Well," she said, "that's a hell of a letter." "Yeah. What are you going to do?" "I don't know." She didn't rush me, just poured more tea. "You don't owe him anything, you know," she said softly. "Closure isn't a gift you have to give." I nodded. "I don't want revenge. I really don't. I want peace. For me. For Ellie." Alicia looked at me with the kind of knowing only best friends carry. "Then maybe the question isn't whether you forgive him. Maybe it's whether carrying the anger is helping you anymore." The next morning I wrote a reply. It wasn't long. "Zach, thank you for the letter. I believe you're trying. I hope treatment gives you the tools to build something better. I'm not ready for a relationship, and I'm not sure I ever will be, but I do hope you heal. For your own sake. Lauren." I didn't add love. I didn't sign it your sister, just Lauren. Clean, clear, honest. I sent it, and then I let it go. Over the next few weeks, life didn't return to normal, because normal had never really existed. But it started to feel stable, real, ours. Ellie began smiling more. She made a new friend at school and started sleeping in her own bed again. She and Dr. Lewis even created a bravery chart together. Every night she slept through without nightmares, she got to put a sticker on it. The chart was half full in 2 weeks. At work, my freelance business began picking up again. A past client referred me to a local nonprofit, and the project blossomed into a retainer deal. For the first time in months, I wasn't just surviving. I was planning ahead. I even went on my first coffee date in over a year. Just coffee, just conversation. No pressure. But it felt good to remember I was more than someone's daughter or sister or even mother. I was me again. One evening, as we were walking home from the park, Ellie asked, "Do you think people can change?" I thought about Zach, my parents, myself. "I think some people want to," I said. "But real change is hard. It takes time and a lot of work." She nodded like she understood more than I gave her credit for. "Good," she said, "because I think we changed. And I like us now." I smiled. "Me too." The knock was soft this time, hesitant. I peeked through the window and froze. It was my father, not dressed in one of his stiff blazers, not standing tall and demanding, but in a worn windbreaker, eyes sunken, hands in his pockets. Ellie was sitting at the dining table coloring, humming to herself. She hadn't seen him yet. I opened the door just a crack. "What do you want?" He cleared his throat, looking down. "I'm not here to argue. I was hoping to talk." "About what?" His voice was rough. "About Ellie, and maybe if there's a way to make things right." I didn't answer. From behind me I heard Ellie's footsteps, then her small voice. "Mom? Who is it?" I turned slowly. "It's Grandpa." She stopped. Her eyes widened, crayon still in her hand. Then she backed up 2 full steps and moved behind me. I crouched to her level. "Do you want to say hi, sweetheart?" She shook her head almost violently. My father saw it, and for once, he didn't try to push past it. "I understand," he said softly, eyes glistening. I deserve that." Ellie peeked around my arm. "Are you going to take me again?" The question landed like a stone in the middle of us. My father's face crumpled. "No, never. What we did, what I let happen, It was wrong. I thought we were doing what was best, but now I know we just didn't want to admit we'd lost control. Ellie said nothing, just stood there, guarded, clutching her hands tight. I'm in therapy now, he continued. Group sessions, weekly meetings. I know it's late, maybe too late, but I had to come, not to ask for forgiveness, just to show you I'm trying. I turned to Ellie. Do you want me to ask him to leave? She nodded, quietly, but clearly. I stood up and faced him. You heard her. He swallowed hard. I did. He backed away. Could I maybe write her a letter someday? For when she's ready? I hesitated, then gave a small nod. A small nod. A letter, that's all. No visits, no contact, unless she asks. I understand. He took one last look, not at me, but at Ellie. Take care of her, he said hoarsely. You're doing better than we ever did. And then he turned, hands still in his pockets, and walked down the steps without looking back. That night, I sat on the edge of Ellie's bed, brushing her hair back as she stared up at the ceiling. Are you okay? I asked. She nodded. He looked sad. He was. She was quiet a moment, then whispered, I didn't feel scared, just like I didn't want to talk to him. That's okay, I said gently. That's called knowing your boundary. Will I always feel that way? Maybe, I said. Or maybe not. But however you feel, it's always okay to say no. She rolled onto her side. Can I write him a letter one day if I want to? I kissed her forehead. Of course. She was asleep within minutes. And I sat there, watching the rise and fall of her breath, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not peace, not yet, but power. The kind that comes from giving a child what you never had. The right to choose who stays in her life and who doesn't. It's been 1 year. 1 year since the knock on the church door. 1 year since my parents crossed a line I never thought they'd even see, let alone step over. 1 year since Ellie asked me if she had done something wrong. And tonight, we're having people over. Not for a holiday, not for a birthday, just because we can. Our new house isn't big, but it's ours. There's art on the fridge, shoes by the door, and laughter in the hallway. And more importantly, there's no fear. Alicia and James arrive first, carrying a tray of lasagna and a bottle of sparkling apple cider. Ellie runs to greet them like they're family. Because they are. Next comes Ms. Daniels, Ellie's teacher, who never stopped checking in after that awful day. Then Dr. Lewis, with her kind smile and her endless patience. A few neighbors trickle in too, each one holding something warm or sweet or homemade. And finally, Aunt Helen, my dad's estranged sister, who found her way back into my life just when I thought every branch of the family tree was broken beyond repair. She hugs me tight at the door. You did it, Lauren, she whispers. You broke the cycle. After dinner, we gather in the backyard under a string of twinkle lights. Ellie passes around homemade bookmarks she crafted, one for each guest, with a little note on the back. Thank you for being my safe people. That's what she calls them now. Not real family, not fake family, safe people. And maybe that's the only definition that matters. Later, after everyone has gone and the house is still, I sit on the back steps with Ellie curled beside me, wrapped in a blanket. She's quiet for a moment. Then softly, Mom? Yeah, baby? I'm glad it happened. I blink, surprised. What do you mean? She looks up at the stars. If they hadn't done that, we might still think they loved us in the right way. I swallowed the lump in my throat. She was right. Their betrayal gave us clarity. Painful, yes, but also liberating. I'm proud of you, I whispered, pulling her closer. I'm proud of us, she replied. As I carried her to bed, I looked around at this little life we'd rebuilt. No perfect parents, no shiny facade, just truth, boundaries, healing, and love, the kind that didn't demand obedience or sacrifice, but gave room to grow. If you've made it this far, thank you. Maybe you've been where I was. Maybe you're still there. If no one's ever told you this, You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they share your blood. You are allowed to build a new version of family. And you are allowed to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Like Ellie wrote on one of her bookmarks, safe isn't about who you're born to. It's about who stays when it's hard. Choose the people who stay, because you, Teo, and your story deserve nothing less. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What would you have done in Lauren's shoes? And what does family mean to you?